For nearly 30 years, humanity fought a war we were never meant to survive. We remember Harvest. We remember Reach. We remember Earth. But those battles, the ones everyone talks about, are only the opening shot and the final scream. Because the truth is, the Human Covenant War you think you know is just a highlight reel. The real war, its turning points, its buried heroes, its catastrophic losses, lies hidden in the 2 decades we never speak about. A void between Harvest and Reach, where entire campaigns vanished into only black boxes. Lost fleets drift through silent space and worlds died without even being named. It's almost as if the middle of the war has been erased, overwritten by panic, secrecy, and the simple fact that few survived long enough to tell the tale. Yet, the records exist. The ghosts remember. And the forgotten battles fought in that darkness shaped everything that followed. The strategies, the sacrifices, the desperation, and the final outcome of the war itself. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're going to uncover the victories we were never supposed to celebrate, the defeats we were never meant to know about, and the hidden moments that changed the fate of humanity long before the fall of Reach. This is the war you never saw, and it's time we finally told its story. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. The Human Covenant War was a cataclysmic conflict, but what if the most crucial moments were never really shown to you? There are battles, strategies, and sacrifices that shape the entire Halo universe hidden in plain sight. Join me as we uncover the forgotten front lines and unveil the true scale of this galactic war in 5 great battles of the Human Covenant War that are frequently overshadowed by the beginning and end of the Human Covenant War. The 24th of December 2530. A date most people have never heard of. A date long buried beneath the tragedies of Reach and Earth and the Ark. But for those who survived, it marked the first time humanity ever proved that the Covenant could bleed. Groombridge 1830 was not a fortress world. It wasn't important, it wasn't strategic. It was just there. A quiet colony in the depths of space circling a lonely star beneath the constellation of Ursa Major, the Great Bear. But on this day, drifting in the cold darkness above that world, lay a Covenant strike group. 3 warships, including a CAS-class assault carrier. Small, but more than enough to erase a human colony without effort. What they did not expect was Preston Cole. Cole did not come to negotiate. He didn't come to protect infrastructure or defend territory, or even to save the planet. He came for something far more important in 2530. He came for proof. Proof that humanity wasn't helpless, that the Covenant weren't invulnerable, and that we could fight back. When Cole's 17 ships fell upon the Covenant, the void erupted into fire. Plasma carved through the UNSC formation. 11 destroyers were lost almost immediately. Whole crews, whole histories, extinguished in seconds. But the UNSC struck back. 2 Covenant vessels were destroyed outright, and the assault carrier, crippled, burning, and broken, plunged into the atmosphere of Groombridge 1830, trailing molten debris across the sky. Humanity had done the impossible. they had defeated a Covenant fleet in open battle. From the wreckage of that CAS-class assault carrier, a single Sangheili survivor was pulled from the wreckage. Subject 386. His interrogation revealed something far more valuable than a tactical victory. The Covenant hated humanity, not for aggression, not for territory, but for existence, for being unclean, unworthy of the artifacts buried across the human space. And worse, the Covenant had no idea how many worlds humanity actually controlled. That ignorance was humanity's only real advantage. Cole understood it instantly. And so, from the ashes of the Great Bear, Preston Cole forged one of the most important doctrines in human history. The Cole Protocol. A mandate for secrecy, for obscurity, for survival through misdirection. From that moment on, every ship, every colony, every civilian route had to be hidden. Not to defeat the Covenant, but to keep humanity alive long enough to learn how to defeat them. The Battle of the Great Bear wasn't just a victory. It wasn't even a turning point. It was something rarer, something more precious. A reminder that even in the early years of the war, in the years when extinction seemed inevitable, humanity was capable of more than fear and retreat. We were capable of defiance, of sacrifice, and of hope. Groombridge 1830 was the first spark in the darkness, a moment where humanity stood its ground, and the Covenant finally realized we would not go quietly. Zoist, a volcanic planet wrapped in yellow hazes, its surface scarred by calderas and glowing rifts, ancient magma flows streaking its crust. It wasn't just another world in the Covenant's empire, it was a holy world, a relic-laden world. Its surface held the vestibules of ancient fauna civilization, the 10 cities of edification, monumental cities whose subterranean vaults and research halls fed much of the Covenant's technological might. Above its blistering ground loomed the Ring of Mighty Abundance, a massive, orbital megastructure built by the Covenant, composed of fleet support stations, refineries, shipyards, gravity elevators and production facilities, all linked by green transit tubes. This ring was the logistical backbone for the Covenant's presence in that sector, and home to a portion of the Fleet of Inexorable Obedience. By 2526, Zoist had become one of the most vital hive nodes in Covenant space, a manufacturing and supply hub built on the bones of Forerunner legacy. To the Covenant, Zoist was untouchable, a sacred ground, a guarantee of their supremacy. After the early horrors of glassing in the outer colonies, the human leadership realized, painfully slowly, that direct confrontation would lead only to self-annihilation. They needed time. They needed leverage. They needed to hit where it hurt the most. So came Operation Silent Storm, a daring, high-risk campaign. Strike the Covenant behind enemy lines, sabotage supply, cripple production, buy humanity time to build real countermeasures. Recon by Task Force Yama, the naval group assigned to the operation, discovered that the Fleet of Inexorable Obedience was calling for a massive logistics convoy expected from Zoist. The network of interdictions that had already crippled other supply lines led the UNSC to believe that if Zoist fell, the Covenant's war machine might grind to a halt, at least long enough for humanity to prepare. With that target, UNSC High Command greenlit the strike, the destruction of Zoist. Not to claim territory, but to shatter the enemy's capacity. In the early hours of the 15th of April 2526, under silent, slipspace. 3 wings of UNSC prowlers, carrying Spec Ops troops from the Black Daggers, and a team of Spartan II super soldiers and other covert operatives descended towards Zoist. The intention? Surgical insertion. No grand fleet battle, no slow occupation, just precision violence. While orbital distractions engaged Covenant fleet elements, the ground teams targeted 2 key objectives simultaneously. The Ring of Mighty Abundance by ascending gravity lifts from surface to ring stations, planting potent explosives at their structural weak points, and the 10 cities of edification, the Forerunner-built spires of relic research and industry. The result was catastrophic for Zoist. Sections of the ring's orbital stations exploded. 2 of the 10 cities were destroyed. Generation of ship components and Covenant battlefield support was crippled. In the chaos, Covenant Naval Command lost its anchor. The orbital ring, their logistical core, was gone. Simultaneously as the orbital ring fell, the fleet assigned to defend Zoist, the fleet for inexorable obedience, suffered a collapse of coordination. Some elements were destroyed, others forced into retreat or abandonment. Ghost Flight, a subgroup of prowlers associated with Task Force Yama, also executed a daring betrayal, defecting from the UNSC to the insurrection during the chaos. By sunrise, Zoist, once the shining jewel of the Covenant's industrial empire, was a smouldering ruin. The destruction of Zoist's orbital infrastructure, the partially assembled supercarrier Hammer of Faith, and 2 of the 10 cities inflicted more than just material losses. It struck at the Covenant's confidence, their logistics, and their sense of invulnerability. For weeks afterward, the fleet of inexorable obedience remained severely weakened. Without Zoist's supply ring, their capacity to refuel, rearm, and project force in that sector was crippled. The Covenant was forced to reroute supplies through longer, riskier routes, stretching reaction times, straining resources, and delaying planned glassings or offensives. The loss of key relic cities and production facilities slowed the manufacturing of weapons and starships. Weapon rate of fire slowed, ship deployment schedules delayed, and certain experimental programs postponed indefinitely. For humanity, Zoist became a symbol not of conquest, but of disruption. A demonstration that they didn't need to hold territory, they only needed to strike. Surgically, silently, and smartly. In many ways, Zoist was the moment humanity stopped playing catch-up, the moment they became predators, not prey. In the latter years of the Human Covenant War, when hope was a rumour and desperation was doctrine, one human admiral prepared for battle that defied logic itself. Side Serpentis, a distant star system where 2 Covenant fleets, more than 300 warships, lay in wait. And into that void sailed a single man with a small fleet. A man who knew he could not win, but a man who intended to do it anyway. Admiral Preston Cole, the most brilliant naval commander in human history, and this was his last stand. For months, Cole had been preparing for something no one understood. He ordered unprecedented quantities of Titanium A armour for his flagship, the UNSC Everest. He requisitioned the half-wrecked cruiser UNSC Io. He stockpiled nuclear weapons in numbers that bordered on obsession. 105 Shiva nuclear missiles, 2,400 archers, 45,000 rounds for the Everest's point defense guns. He studied star density, slipspace theory, planetary cores, and gravitational collapse. No one in HICOM realized it yet, but Cole wasn't planning a naval battle. He was planning an act of God. On July 28, 2543, Battle Group India dropped into Side Serpentis as one unified mass. The slipspace wake rippled through the system like a shockwave, announcing their arrival to every Covenant sensor for light years. The Covenant moved immediately. More than 100 warships surged towards Cole's battle group, and more were coming. Cole executed a maneuver considered suicidal by every naval officer alive, an in-system slipspace jump. The fleet vanished and reappeared beside the gas giant Viperidae. Guided by stealth beacons laid days earlier by the prowler UNSC Wink of an Eye, some ships misjumped, dozens were lost to Covenant pursuit, but the sacrifice bought the fleet time to regroup, and then Cole sprung the trap. Cole split the fleet, a flanking group arced around Viperidae, catching the Covenant in a crossfire. Suddenly the Covenant formation, sleek, perfect and arrogant, fractured. Lasers burned, Mac guns tore through capital ships in nuclear white arcs. Covenant vessels detonated in blossoms of violet, emerald and gold, and by the time the Covenant regrouped, Cole had destroyed 23 of their warships, but lost a third of his own fleet. It didn't matter though. Cole's plan had not yet truly begun. Then something impossible happened. A fleet of insurrectionist ships burst from slipspace, led by the heavily modified freighter Bellicose, commanded by Cole's former lover, Lyrene Castilla. They smashed headlong into the Covenant formation, drew fire, caused chaos, and then vanished as quickly as they arrived. It wasn't heroism, it wasn't revenge, it was a gift, a final act of respect for the man who had once chased them across the stars. And it was all Cole needed. Cole drove the Everest deeper and deeper into Viperidae's gravity well, right to the razor's edge, to the point of no return. Covenant plasma fire sheeted across the magnetosphere, deflected harmlessly, turning the sky into a storm of purple lightning. Cole opened a system-wide broadcast, a taunt, a declaration, a challenge to the Covenant's holy claims. And it worked. The Covenant gave chase. They wanted to kill Cole themselves. The Everest fired a barrage of missiles, nuclear detonations that blinded Covenant sensors. A feign, a distraction, because in that moment, Cole did something no human had ever done. He launched 100 Shiva nuclear warheads into the unstable core of the gas giant. Viperidae ignited. The gas giant collapsed inward and then erupted outward in a planetary-born supernova. For a heartbeat, Viperidae became a newborn star. The shockwave tore through everything. Covenant ships, debris, plasma wakes, holy vessels, obliterated in an instant. 2 Covenant fleets, over 300 warships, and the Everest gone. Only a smouldering rock remained where a world had once spun. High Command declared Cole dead. A day of mourning was set, July 28th. Paintings were commissioned, statues raised, but Oni's AI calculated the truth. There was an 89.7% chance that Cole survived through an in-atmosphere slipspace jump and simply never returned. Perhaps to fight another day, perhaps to disappear into obscurity, perhaps to die anonymously in the void he spent his life defending. But behind him, he left a message. A message burned across the stars. At Psi Serpentis, the Covenant learned something terrifying. That a single human, a single ship, a single moment of brilliance and defiance could annihilate entire fleets. Cole didn't just win a battle, he rewrote the rules. He reminded the Covenant that humanity was not prey, but a force capable of cosmic consequences. Psi Serpentis was not a victory, it was a warning, and the galaxy would never forget it. By July of 2552, the Human Covenant War was entering its final desperate months. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, colonies lost one after another, and then, in the darkness of slipspace, A gravitational anomaly was logged by a board ensign. He marked it as an asteroid and then filed the report, but it was no asteroid. It was a Covenant task force, massed so tightly in slipspace that their presence bent the very medium around them, and when they emerged into real space, they found themselves staring down a single UNSC destroyer, a destroyer commanded by Commander Jacob Keyes. Keyes had read the anomaly differently. He realized it wasn't a single mass, but many, a tight formation, a classic Covenant infiltration signature. He expected 4 frigates. What he got was far worse. 1 Covenant carrier, 1 light destroyer, and 2 frigates. A force so overwhelming it should have wiped the Iroquois clean out of the sky in seconds. And yet Keyes did the unthinkable. He attacked. A lone destroyer against a fleet. No retreat, no hesitation, no fear. This was the moment the Keyes loop was born. The Iroquois charged head-on at the Covenant destroyer. Keyes launched a nuclear warhead in the wrong direction, or so it seemed. He then hit emergency thrusters at the last possible second, skimming the destroyer's shields and shredding half of his own ship's armour in the process. But that insane manoeuvre brought something priceless. The Covenant's own plasma torpedoes missed, and then swung back and struck the wrong ship. The Covenant destroyer died in its own crossfire. Keyes followed up with Archer missiles, a clean execution, and then he slingshotted the Iroquois around Sigma Octantis 4, detonating the misdirected nuke behind him, draining the shields of the Covenant frigates on approach. 2 Mac rounds, hundreds of Archer missiles, and 2 frigates fell. The carrier fled the system, leaving only dropships to finish what it had started. 1 destroyer had defeated 3 warships and driven off a carrier. It was one of the greatest UNSC space victories of the war, and it was only just beginning. With the carrier gone, 34 dropships landed in and around the coastal metropolis of Côte d'Azur. Fog, jungle canopy, 0 satellite intel, 1,600 Marines deployed, blind. Firebase Bravo fell first. Its survivors were hunted down. Alpha HQ fell next, torn apart by hunters and elites, and only 14 Marines remained alive. The jungle belonged to the Covenant, and so the call went out for the only soldiers who could turn the tide. Spartans. John, Fred, Linda, Kelly, Joshua, James, Blue Team, Red Team, Green Team, 12 Spartans in total, against thousands of Covenant soldiers. They secured the ruins of Alpha HQ, they split into teams, they hunted Megalak Golo in the jungles, and finally, they found it. Hidden inside the shattered Côte d'Azur Museum of Natural History, guarded by hunters and elites, was a simple fragment of igneous rock. Ordinary, unremarkable, yet the Covenant had brought an entire task force to retrieve it. They were scanning it, transmitting its data to orbit. John and the Blue Team fought their way inside, killed the hunters, and recovered the stone. They didn't know it then, but that stone contained a Foreigner star map, a map to Installation 04, the first Halo ring. With the relic secured and civilians evacuated, the Spartans detonated a Havoc nuclear warhead, destroying Côte d'Azur, denying the Covenant what they sought. And yet the battle was not over, because above Sigma Octantis 4, the Covenant returned. A full fleet arrived at the system's edge. 48 UNSC ships stood ready under Admiral Stanforth Whitcomb and formed them into a tight, deadly lattice. A checkerboard of Mac guns. When the Covenant fleet entered range, the UNSC fired every Mac simultaneously. The opening salvo crippled the Covenant, but their retaliation would have annihilated the UNSC, if not for one thing. The orbital repair station Cradle moved in front of the UNSC formation. It absorbed the entire Covenant plasma barrage. The station died. Its crew died. But the fleet survived. A second Mach volley shattered the Covenant line. Only 8 ships remained, then fled. The UNSC had won, one of its only major victories in space during the entire war, but even in victory, the price was catastrophic. Less than 10 UNSC ships remained intact. The Covenant got what they wanted. The data transmitted from the igneous relic revealed the position of Halo, and that same data carried aboard the Iroquois was tracked by a Covenant probe, and that probe led them to Reach. Sigma Octantis IV was a victory, but it lit the path to humanity's greatest defeat. Sigma Octantis IV is one of the most critical battles in the entire Human Covenant War, because Keyes defeated 3 warships and drove off a carrier with a single destroyer. This became a legend across the UNSC and a warning to the Covenant. Marines, ODSTs and Spartans fought a brutal jungle war with almost no intel. This triggered the beginning of the end. The Flood's release, the Covenant Civil War, the death of the Prophet's great plan. Covenant spycraft on the Iroquois traced humanity's fleet movements back to Reach. The victory at Sigma Octantis IV led immediately, tragically, to one of humanity's greatest losses. But Sigma Octantis IV also showed that data, artifacts and reconnaissance can outweigh fleets, soldiers or weapons. Intelligence won the day and doomed the next. The 10th day of 2545 seemed very similar to practically any day that had been occurring during the Human Covenant War to date. But this day was the day the Covenant revealed their cruelty, and the day the Spartans revealed their humanity. By this point, humanity had been at war for 2 decades, and still didn't fully understand the true nature of its enemy. Glassings, extermination, the destruction of colonies, these were horrors we had already come to expect. But Draco III was different. Draco III showed us the soul of the Covenant, and what we saw changed everything. On January the 10th, 2545, the Covenant arrived in the Draco system. The UNSC defenders were overwhelmed in hours. Orbital batteries silenced, communications severed. The planet was conquered almost immediately. But instead of glassing the world from orbit, instead of completing the extermination in a single planetary firestorm, the Covenant chose something far worse. They chose to leave Draco III intact, to keep its forests, its cities, its fields alive. They chose to turn a human world into a hunting ground. Survivors across the colony, families, workers, children, were rounded up and driven into open terrain, gathered, herded and terrified. And then the Covenant opened the cages. Starving Ungoi, ravenous Kigya, deprived of food, unleashed deliberately. They descended upon the civilians in a frenzy, slashing, tearing, feeding and killing. Not for strategy, not for morale, not for war, but for sport. For the first time, humanity saw the true depths of the Covenant's contempt. That we were not enemies, not even prisoners. We were prey, meat, something less than animals. Certain houses and streets were bombed to force people into flight. Corpses were piled in mounds and burned. the Covenant left the world half ruined, half intact. A perfect domain for ritualized slaughter. This was not a battle, it was an atrocity. A message, and someone watched it happen. From a satellite uplink high above the world, several Spartan 2s, led by the Master Chief, Spartan John 117, bore witness to the massacre in real time. They watched an entire colony scream and die beneath them. They watched human beings torn apart by starving aliens, while the Covenant looked on. In that moment, something inside them cracked. Something deep and human, forged in childhood, reforged by augmentation, was pushed to its breaking point. The Spartans had known war, but they had never seen this. The order came down. Deploy, rescue survivors, extract them immediately. The Spartans hit the surface like thunder, but they were too late. Every civilian was dead. Not one survivor remained. What happened next is one of the most defining and least spoken moments in Spartan history. Upon confirming the massacre, the Spartans did not request extraction. They did not regroup. They did not fall back. They refused. They entered a cold, absolute rage. Not a loss of control, not a feral frenzy, but a focused, surgical fury. The kind only a Spartan could maintain. Their mission wasn't given by command. It was given by conscience. We don't leave until every last one of them is dead. And command could not stop them. The Spartans hunted. They hunted the Covenant unit responsible across Draco III. KKR skirmishes were eliminated with precision shots. Ungoi raiding packs were annihilated in seconds. Elites, confident in their supremacy, were cut down with brutal efficiency. One by one, camp by camp, fireteam by fireteam, until the Covenant presence on Draco III was erased completely. A tactical UNSC victory, but a moral one too. In the years that followed, Draco III remained uninhabited. A dead world, a scar on the map. But the deepest scars were carried by the Spartans. Most of all, by John 117. The massacre etched itself into him. A reminder of what failure meant. A reminder of what the Covenant truly were. A reminder of why he fights, not just as a soldier, but as a protector. Draco III was not just another invasion. It was the moment humanity understood the Covenant's absolute cruelty, and the moment Spartans proved they were more than weapons. They were human, and for that reason, they were unstoppable. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to tap that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Pop a comment down below on things you'd like me to cover in the future, or any thoughts on today's video. I'll just quickly take this opportunity to thank my patrons and YouTube supporters: Falcon X003, the Singular, Contender Class Ancilla, Laser and Spartan 0137, two of the triumvirate of mines within the metarch of my installation. My installation's monitors: Shane, Orion, Spartan 1029, 121 Esoteric Sight, Ashley, and Sylphia. The creche of sub-monitors: Legion, Ryan, Labrat, Element 0, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma, and Tony. My fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome individuals helping to support the channel over on Patreon. It really does help and allows me to keep doing what I do, and I can't thank you all enough. Huge shout to my Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Balaz, Jimbo, and Mori. Thank you for continuing to stand sentry over my installation from all threats metaphysical. And if you would like to help support the channel in a more visceral way, consider jumping aboard as a YouTube member or patron to earn tons of perks, merch, and goodies along the way. Thank you again for watching, take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.